We are live, 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 live. Welcome to the live windsurf coaching. I'm back in Hamburg. Let me know if you sailed this week. Did you sail? I sailed. I had some fun days up in Klitmøller, up in Denmark, in Hansthom. We had a really fun session. When was it? Was it on Wednesday or Tuesday? I think Tuesday was the first day, and then Wednesday, and it was like 4-0 weather, logo, mast high waves, kind of a little bit onshore, port tack. Very, very fun. Hey, Philip was there. Philip was sailing. Some very fun conditions. And then the next day, I sailed in the morning, which wasn't very good. Well, that's not true. It was, by any stretch, it was good. Like big waves, windy. But after the day before, going from a 4-0 to a 5-0, it wasn't as fun. But then I went that evening, and I thought, I'm tired from the day before. I don't really want to sail. The conditions don't look great, but I had such a fun session. It was up at the fish factory, and it was really a lot of fun. One of the most fun sessions I've had, actually, in a long time. We got a lot of people joining us: Dom, Steen, Philip, Hans, Jorg, Axel, Tomas, Caro, Matt, Facebook user who sailed on Monday. Yeah, good to have everyone here. Rasmus sailed in Silt. I guess it was the same storm that I was sailing. Tomas is asking if I have any new footage. I do. Katrine, my wife, was able to film a little bit during Tuesday's session, so I have a few clips. But I don't have them here. I don't have them ready, but I'll put them together, post some in the group, and share them. Maybe I can find some examples. What's interesting for you guys? So do you want to see just action, or do you want to see me trying to work through something, or coaching myself, or what's interesting? Got a few waves. Should have a bit of a variety of things on the footage. We've got a couple kids, and so my wife had 20 or 30 minutes to film, and that's it. So not a whole lot of footage. It's not like filming for an hour or two or something, but there's definitely some clips. Hey, Super Sachet in Rhodes. So Tomas says he wants reading the wave, setup, and execution. So basically everything. All right, I'll see what I have. I'll go through the footage that we have, and I'll throw something together and put it in the group. Edwin sailed in Vikensee on Monday. So those of you who don't know, Vikensee is one of the best wave sailing spots in Holland, probably in Europe in general, I would say. It can be really fun. Udorp as well. I haven't sailed there, actually. Yeah, nice to hear, Edwin. You had a good session. Edwin is one of our rippers. Rasmus says he's interested in some self-coaching. Cool. All right, so let's jump into the group. I'm back in Hamburg. I've got my usual setup, so you guys should be able to hear me and see me, all of the above. So let's jump into the Facebook group. The internet should be working. We had problems last time. I was at John's house. John is one of our community members, and I was up in his house in Klitmøller doing the stream last week. And we had a few issues with the internet, unexpected. We did tons of speed tests before the live stream, and it was all fine, but then it started to get a little shaky during the stream. So there was a few things to catch up from last week. Caro, we have hi, by the way, and we have your goose screw, Waimaru forward loop process to go over. I think there was one or two other things as well that we didn't get from last week. All right, so in terms of sort of housekeeping admin stuff, so I'm launching a newsletter, which I'm excited about. I'm excited to write and put things together. So what is it going to be, and how does it work? with if you've got the live streams and we've got the community, where does the newsletter fit in? So the newsletter is going to be a few different things. It's going to be a um, like an overview from, so I'm going to do it monthly, start monthly. If we want to do it more frequently, I can go more frequently. So it's going to be an overview of my comments from the coaching group, from the Facebook group. So sort of a summary with some sort of second order meta comments as well. So we get into a discussion, and then sometimes, a week later, I'll reflect on that discussion and have some additional thoughts. And so those are the kind of things that will be in the newsletter, as well as some coaching tips and ideas on specific topics, like whatever it is, tax or jibes or whatever, getting out through whitewater, dealing with light wind, dealing with fear. But then also more general things like how to approach learning, how to approach training, and links to some interesting articles and insights that all relate to those topics. It is a paid newsletter. So I'm doing it through Patreon. I was looking at Substack. So Substack is I don't know if you guys know Substack or not, but basically it's a way for writers to connect with their audience and have a direct relationship. But in the end, Patreon seemed like a better choice for this because it can link in with some other things. And so anyway, so I set up a Patreon. Mainly I set it up for the newsletter, but there's also an option if you just want to support the live stream or the Facebook community, there's an option to do that as well. And then there's also a higher category, which then has like I'm calling it an accelerator club. John, by the way, I don't know about the subtitles. I didn't do anything different. So it's cool that there's subtitles. It's cool that that's working. So accelerator club, I just want to go through this super quickly, and then we're going to get into the Facebook footage for review. So it's access to the newsletter, but also a WhatsApp group that I'm in. So those of you who have done coaching with me in either I did like a loop course, a TAC course online, or some of the master classes in person. We have a WhatsApp group where there's a lot of discussion and there's some footage review. There's questions. I'm involved. The community is involved. So Accelerator Group is a WhatsApp group like that, and as well a monthly Zoom. And so the Zoom, everyone will get together. You can ask questions. We can go over footage, and yeah, and so that's similar to like what we did on the Tacking course, but instead of having a specific topic like tax, the topics can be chosen monthly by the people who are in the Accelerator Club. And so how to sign up for all of those things are on the Patreon, which is just patreon.com/Graham Ezzy. I'm posting a comment now, and it should be in the description of this. So there's 3 tiers there. There's a way just to support this. And I'm going to keep doing this stuff for free. If you can support it, I really appreciate that. It helps keep it going. It helps me invest in it and do more and more and more. If you can't put any money in, that's also fine. Don't feel bad. And if you want to support it without putting money in, tell your friends. So let's get some more people in this community. I feel like the more people who are windsurfing better and having more fun on the water and doing better with their windsurfing, the better it is for all of us. I think we're all having a better time in windsurfing, and I don't see this as a selfish thing. Like I don't think hiding these lessons is going to do you any good. I'm not saying anyone is saying that. I don't think anyone is, but the more the merrier. So there's ways to support the live stream as well as the coaching group on the Patreon at a basic level. You can sign up for the newsletter, and you can sign up for the Accelerator Club. And if you don't want to put any money in, that's totally fine, and you're super, super welcome. And if you want to support in other ways, just be a member of the community and post things and be involved. That's also really, really valuable. And then you can also tell your friends and get other people involved in the coaching as well. All right, let's jump into the Facebook group. Let's open it up. Here we are. All right. So first up, and again, like I said, we've got some stuff from last week too. If I miss something, you just let me know. You guys can interrupt me. You know the drill by now. Hey, Soon. Am I saying that right? Soon? Um, you were sailing on Tuesday in North Zealand. That sounds fun. Yeah. Klitmuller Handsome was also very fun. All right, so this is the first post from Luke. This is my first post here. Welcome, Luke. I've learned a lot from this group, so thanks for that. We are happy to have you. Everyone is welcome to join if you're not a member. Link up there. Anyway, here's some photos of a back loop attempt of mine. This one isn't one of my best attempts, but is the only good photo I have of me doing one. Right from the start, I noticed my backhand needs to go way further back near the clips. I'd be stoked to hear tips from anyone in this group. Thanks. All right, so let's go through the photos. So we can't really see the hands. The sail position, I think, looks good. So Luke mentioned that he could have a wider grip. I could see that. But so far it's looking good. This is in the gorge, it looks like. So there's a lot to like here. I'd say there's more to like than not to like. These kind of conditions where you're jumping off of the river swell can be tricky at first. Um, but Luke, it looks like you're getting a good rotation. You're getting some good height. I think having a bit of a wider grip will be helpful. And then otherwise, your rotation looks really solid. It's not too fast. It doesn't look too slow. You're coming down on the nose. And this might look radical to some people at first, but those of you in the group who have been members for a couple years, I think it was, I can't remember when it was, but at some point in the history of the group, I posted some photo sequences of me landing a back loop, and the angle of the board isn't much different than this. So the angle of the board isn't the issue here. The orientation of the body to the sail is the main issue, because when you're going to land, you're going to catch the nose, and the way your body is, you're going to fall around the mast here. So instead, what you want to do when you're coming down from the back loop, so starting around this point, you want to really start pushing that sail forward. So you're pushing the sail towards the nose of the board, and that really helps you steer the rig downwind and get in the landing position. What really helps me when I'm in the air is I think, okay, I've got to land this back loop going way, way, way downwind. And it's the same feeling as if I'm trying to just sail way downwind. So I'm pushing forward with a front arm that's extended, sheeting in with my backhand. And that's the same kind of body position that I'm in if I'm trying to just sail fast, really, really downwind. And so that's the same position that you want to be in the air, because you're trying to land it going downwind, right? And so if you're got the sail back like this, that's not a position for going downwind. And so it's going to be a bit awkward. Even if you line up the angle right and the sail's not in the right position, when you touch the water, power, everything's not going to work, right? So you got to get that sail forward. Got to get that sail forward. Got to get that sail forward. We've talked about in this group, which might be helpful for you, is doing the windshield wiper. So it's like when you're taking off on the back loop, your hands are back, and then you're bringing everything forward. I think I'm quite small, so I don't know if you can see me on this. I might just make myself a little bit bigger just to show this. So you've got your hands. Hey, Konstantinos from Greece. So you've got your hands like this, and then the windshield wipers. It's like a dance move or something, right? You're just pushing the rig forward. And so let me scoot back a bit so you can see more of my body. So you've got your arms like this, and then as you're coming down, you're doing that windshield wiper with your arms, pushing the sail towards the nose of the board, steering it downwind towards the water. So you're getting it towards the water. That angle is right, but you're coming in and you're keeping the sail tight to your body. That's going to be very, very difficult to land. Instead, you want to get that sail pushed forward. And then you land soft, the sail fills up with wind, and you keep sailing on. So I hope that makes sense. Otherwise, it looks really good. I think it looks really good. So I'm going to close out of this and move on. Oops. Okay, so Luke. Good job. All right. Next up, Daniel from Tenerife says, I recently had my first ever windsurf coaching, and I thought I might share this experience with you. I've been learning back loops for many years, and in the last 1 to 2 years, I started to land them more consistently. However, I never really felt in control when going higher, so most of them were quite low. Also, people told me that I hang from the boom instead of being nicely compact and close to the boom. I tried to pull up, but somehow did not really get there. Then one day at Cabezo, the local, Jochen, phrased it in a way that made my brain click. Pull up on the boom until your nipples are above it. And I immediately could do it. I could jump higher and felt so much more in control in the air. However, all my timing, intuition was lost, and I crashed all of my jumps that day. Oh no. On the next day, I had my first coaching with Dieter van der Eycken, who uses a BB talk-in system, which is like a Bluetooth communication system. It's an awesome tool, two-way communication on the water. Within 1.5 hours, he corrected all my posture and timing errors and made me land the first backie with the correct technique. The most important tips were, on the peak, look more aggressively over the shoulder when spotting the landing. This made me stop under-rotating. When dropping, push the sail forward so your back hand is at your breast and the front hand is stretched away. When doing this, you only push the front hand and let the back hand slide through to end up with a wide grip. Still working on this one. So we just talked about this in the last one, and there's two different techniques to it, right? You can let the boom slide through your backhand, or you can reach back, and they both work. And you see some of the best windsurfers, whether it's Brasinho or Philip Koster, actively reaching back on the boom, not doing the slide through method. But I think they both kind of work, but you don't have to focus on getting that slide through. You can do it either way, whatever feels more comfortable for you. But getting that sail push forward is very important. All in all, my progress within 1.5 hours was huge compared to keep trying on my own. And invested in coaching was definitely worth the money. Attached is the footage. Maybe this is interesting to discuss. Yeah, so I think coaching is always worth it, or almost always worth it. Like, there's very few examples where it's not. It just accelerates you, and whether you're doing that coaching with Dieter or Ben Profit or with me or someone else, it's so valuable rather than struggling through these things all on your own. So let's watch some of the video. Yeah, let's enter a full screen. Oops. All right, he's looking for the ramp. Nice, beautiful back loop ramp. Taking off. This looks good. I mean, I know you crashed on this one, Daniel, but let's break it down. So he carves up into the wind. We like to see that. So first step, good. Shoot straight up without thinking about the rotation. Good. Gets to the apex. It's a little slow to look over his shoulder. So Daniel, so far this is looking pretty good. I think you want to have more head rotation. So like what I've said before is you want the head to guide your back loop. The head guides the rotation. And so you can see here that your head is kind of looking over your shoulder, but it's not looking where you want to land, right? Your head is kind of looking, I don't know, it's looking like over that shoulder, which is what people say, you look over your shoulder, but you want to be extreme about it. You want to look down at the water where you want to land, and that helps guide your rotation. And you push the sail forward, you come around, and I think if your head was guiding the rotation just a little bit more, you would have landed this one perfectly. Because it's very nice that, a lot of the technique is there. All right, so let's watch the next one. Let's make it full screen. Nice video quality too. All right, here we go. Another good ramp, go straight up. Go straight up. A little bit more head movement this time, but less pushing the sail forward. So you've got more head movement, but the sail isn't being pushed forward as much as in the last one. And as we already said, that's a pretty important part of landing the back loop. All right, this is the last clip. Let's see how it looks. All right, oops. I don't know what I did there. All right, here we are. Video is playing. Jump, 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 straight up. Getting some there. The head is a little bit more aggressive. Let's see if we can combine it with the sail pushing forward. A little bit better. Yeah. And he landed it. Look at that. So when you combine the head with that sail pushing forward, it all comes together. It all works. And now, those aren't the only two factors. Those aren't the only things going on. Dan has a lot of good technique that we can see here. He's carving way up into the wind, but not carving off the wave, but you can see that his angle, look at the angle that he changes, like from going downwind, getting speed, looking for the ramp, and then well before he gets on the ramp, so he's not carving out as he goes off the top, which is a mistake that some people make. He carves before the bottom of the wave and then travels up the wave, going up into the wind, goes straight up into the air, stays compact, uses his head to spot the landing. Here, it's more aggressive with his head. He's looking at the landing and pushes the sail forward. And it works. And it works. It all comes together. So nice work. All right. Next up, we have, and again, you guys can interrupt me. If any of this doesn't make sense or you have questions, interrupt me anytime. When tacking a shortboard, I'm still falling in a lot, Colin says, especially in front of a wave. When it really matters, despite keeping low, carving up, going boom to boom, etc., I still find it unstable when past head to wind on the other side. I'm just wondering if I should be nipping around the front earlier. I suspect it's true because I tried it. I was around before heading into the wind and consequently easier to back wind the sail and keep my balance. So what is the heading when the move should be started? And does this vary according to lulls and gusts? Yeah, so basically you can go around the mast sooner than you think. Having speed is very important, but you can go around the mast sooner than you think. And sooner is better than later. If you wait too long, it's very, very hard. It's almost impossible. If you go too early, you just get backwinded a little bit longer and you can still do a nice tack on the shortboard. I think there's a few people in the chat that did my tacking course. So if you guys have any tips you want to throw in for call-in, please throw them in the chat or on the comments here. But basically, the short answer to your question is, Colin, earlier is better than later. You can go around super early, and then all that happens is you end up a little bit backwinded, and then you have to steer the rig around. But in fact, that can even be a good method to keep your speed and come out of the tack more quickly. One other thing you say is that you're going boom to boom, and you're having problems with stability. Going boom to boom is fine, but I think the most stable way to do it is to grab the mast in the beginning. So you grab your mast with the front hand, the beginning front hand, you go around, and then you grab the boom on the new side. And that is the way that I tack. It's the way that a lot of people tack, and it's the way that I think is the most stable, like fewest things going on, easiest to handle way to tack. Some people really like going boom to boom, and if that's you, do it, keep doing it. But if you are feeling unstable, try grabbing the mast as you go into the tack. That might give you a little bit more stability and control on the rig. Hey, Juso, hello, Finland. So, Colin, I think we answered your question. If you have any more questions about the tack, don't hesitate to answer them here. We have a lot of tacking masters from the Tacking Masterclass that happened earlier this year. Eric is one of them. Hello, Eric. And he says, where I sail when we get some waves, it's normally very onshore. Still, we try to emulate sailing in Hokipa. Perhaps this is because there are few examples of cool backside riding. So the question becomes, what are fun/cool things to do while backside riding, and where are the videos? Great question. Backside riding is amazing. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of onshore places where you should only be backside riding because going frontside riding just doesn't work for the place because you don't have any power and it doesn't really fit to the wave. So backside riding is definitely something you should be working on, something you should be doing. Uh, where do we find the videos? Hey, Nicolas. I'm sorry, there's no wind. All right, where do we find the videos for back backside riding? I have to check, and I'll try to post some examples. My go-to is always to check Continent 7. So Continent 7 is a great resource for um, learning about windsurfing because there's so many clips and examples from different moves. So here are some different examples of onshore backside wave rides. So Silt, Pozo are places on the world tour where you're going to see some cool backside riding. This is one I've never seen it before, but this is Liam Dunkerbeck riding a wave backside. This is kind of an old video, so it's definitely he's definitely very young in this. He looks like he's 12. There's a date on here. I can tell you exactly how old he is. But it's nice. You can see he does a little backside carve, and then he's looking for another turn on the next section. Again, he's just focusing on traveling up the line. Again, Continent 7 is a really good resource if you're trying to learn anything, whether it's a wave ride or a Vulcan or a back loop or forward loop or a tack or a jibe or anything else. He does a little aerial. I really like backside aerials, especially like this, even though it doesn't look very dramatic, and something like this doesn't score very well in an event. I really recommend doing it because it teaches you so much. It teaches you about the high five. It teaches you about the timing of making contact with the lip, especially if you're trying to land it back inside the wave, which you should be trying to do. And unlike the frontside aerial, so I recommend people working on backside aerials in onshore conditions to learn frontside aerials. And this video shows exactly why that is. Because when you're going frontside, you're doing this huge bottom turn. Like, imagine if he's trying to hit this section over here going frontside, right? He's got to do a turn going all this distance. He's got to get the timing right for that distance. He's got to keep his speed for that distance. There's so many variables, so many things he has to do. Whereas doing that aerial, that's same kind of aerial going backside, all he's got to do, there's no degrees to turn. He's just going straight. He's just got to get that timing, just got to get a little bit of high five, connecting his board, which is going at speed, with the lip of the wave at the right moment to get a bit of air and to get a bit of kick from the wave. And because the wind's onshore, he doesn't even need that much kick, but he can start to feel it and start to experiment. So this one, he mistimes it a little bit. He's a little bit too early. So he's doing more of a chop hop than a backside aerial. But if you're working on this move, you can see the spectrum. So you can go a little bit early, you can go a little bit late. You can see what the differences are. You can see how the wave pushes you differently when you go early versus late versus bang on right on time. When you get that perfect high five moment, which when you get it, you'll know you get it because that wave just hits the bottom of the board and you just fly forward. But it's such a good exercise. It's such a good exercise to do. And you can see, I hope that it's clear why it's a good exercise, because you're able to practice the timing, practice getting air without going through all the issues of going frontside, without having to do that big turn, without having to keep your speed, everything else. So the backside aerial is highly, highly underrated. It's one of the best things to do to work on frontside aerials. And that just looks cool as well. This is a nice little one too. What I really like about this with young Dunkerbeck is he's not going too radical. He's doing sailing very well now. He's a lot older than in this video. But in this, he's not going too radical. He's not getting the sail laid very low. He's staying kind of upright. And he's getting this little high five. It's just a baby high five. But this is a nice example to show what we talk about, where he's getting that angle of the board just a little bit angled so that the power of the wave can connect and transfer its energy, transfer its energy into the board speed. And you can see it just carries him, and it's almost even too much speed. You know, he kind of has to like settle down a little bit. Yeah, we'll watch that one more time. I wonder if these other waves are also backside. Let's see. So these are also on other onshore wave rides. Yeah, so there's another little backside aerial. Like this is a different kind. It's more of like a shove it where he's getting the sail down. It's more radical. This is Ricardo Campello. And then some front side turns. Going backside to front side to backside to front side is also a very nice way to ride waves when it's onshore. But Eric, I really understand what you're saying where, you know, you see a lot of footage like this, which has this sort of really difficult to do frontside riding in the onshore conditions. And we want to see some that's just pure backside riding. This wave from Moritz might be an example of that. So let's see. Let's slow it down. So there's a nice slidey backside reverse into a Shaka 720. So there's a lot of tricks on this wave. This is a very tricky wave. But maybe that's inspiring. I think this is very, very difficult to do. There's another reverse. Moritz, you know, this is one of my hot takes on Pozo. Moritz is one of the most inspiring windsurfers there. I would say Philip Koster and Moritz Malk are the two windsurfers in Pozo that I'm most excited to watch and that are the most inspiring. What is funny is that Philip Koster won the event, first place, and Moritz Malk came dead last in this last World Cup. He was dead last. And what does that mean? What does that mean about competitions? I don't know. I find it interesting that the two people that I think are the best in Pozo and most interesting to watch are on opposite sides of the ranking. Anyway, it's a little bit of an aside. Moritz is obviously very, very good. Here's a backside wave ride from Victor Fernandez, and then we're going to go back to the coaching group. So there's another little carving backside turn into a second one. This is a good example as well because the wave is pretty small. Eric, I think that this is probably similar to the conditions that you're getting. And so doing these backside carving turns, which is different than the ones with the sail laid down, is really fun to do. It is something nice to work on, feeling your rails, feeling your board, getting some carving. So Eric, I hope that these examples are helpful for you. I'll go through my footage and I'll see if I can pull something out. And yeah, and this is something like this is a topic, just to go back to the newsletter, like this is a topic that I can really go in depth in the newsletter because I can pull out photo sequences and videos and talk about the minutia of it and of the different kinds of technique. And this is then getting a little bit closer to something that we go through in the in-person master classes where we can really get into the small details of the technique and strategy for learning something new like backside riding, or even if you can already do it, just getting better at it. But anyway, great question, Eric. I'm going to see if what I can find and post some examples in the comments. All right, next up, we've got a post. So this is a post that I did from November last year that's been pulled up again. Thank you, Juso, for bringing this up again. I love it when the old posts, excuse me, are brought up again because it means that people are still using them and they're still doing work. So I love to see it. Thank you. Dom is saying that if Moritz would jump more, he'd be ranked a lot higher. That might be true, but Moritz can jump pretty well, and he also jumped pretty well in his heat. And he was taken out by a good friend of mine, Flo Young, who sailed a really solid heat. And Moritz had, I think, a table forward and a back loop or one-handed back loop. And the conditions are pretty difficult for the jumping. But I think it's really difficult. Competition is not necessarily the best. Well, it's obviously not the best venue for showing his skills. It is for Phillips. You know, Philip has won there a lot. Anyway, all right. So Juso says, how do you get the board up and out of the water, especially when going so downwind? Do you get the board to jump even if you lose power, or you just have to know the moment before power loss and go then. I watched the live stream where this was talked about, but it focused on going downwind and keeping body under the sail. How do you stop the feet from coming out of the straps? That is a good question, Juso. And you're right to point out that this is more difficult than maybe it seems at first. And I think that there are different personalities, and some people will gravitate towards this exercise. It will make a lot of sense to them. What I didn't show here, but we did talk about, is that what comes before this exercise is doing it's doing the jibe, where you're just like really using the sail, throwing it across into the wind and slamming the gear around, called a flare jibe, and then really exaggerating that flare jibe to even fall on your back under the sail. So you're working on the sail dynamics with the flare jibe before you get into the Weimaroos like this. But so to answer your question specifically, Juso, you want to go over the back of a piece of chop or over the front of a piece of chop, but you want to use some chop. It's a lot more difficult on perfectly glassy water. And in most cases, you won't have perfectly glassy water. In most cases, there will be some chop. You can go over the front of that chop or over the back of that chop. In this example, I'm going over the back of the chop. And you can see that I come into the carve really bending my knees. And so the jump, the air is really coming from the legs. And so I'm carving, really getting this board on its edge. And then as I'm going over the chop, I extend my legs almost like I'm just jumping. And it's really important to get that carve going into the move, because it helps you carry your speed and it gives you something to push against. So the board doesn't just slide when you push on it and when you try and do that jump. Because when you're carving and then you push, the board will hold in the water, and then it's like a platform you to push off of, and then you can get in the air. And then once you kind of unweight, then you can suck your legs up under you. But you don't even have to do it that much. As you can see in this one, I keep my legs pretty straight. And then it's important to use the sail. Use the sail to drive the rotation, right? This is a forward loop exercise for those of you who haven't seen this before. This is something you can do to help learn the forward loop in a safe way. Because one of the big things with the forward loop and teaching the forward loop is I don't want it to be unsafe. I don't want it to be just about conquering the fear. Of course, there are fear aspects, but I want to break down the technique and work on the move incrementally, so you never have to take this big leap of faith and you never have to worry about hurting yourself. And this is one of the exercise is in that process. There's a 4-step program that Remco de Weerd came up with, which you can find on YouTube, which is very good. So I have a bit of a different philosophy to him. So I have some different exercises, but the Weimaroo and the flare jibe come from his 4-step process. And I think that those can be really, really effective. I think before you get into this, you want to do the, we were calling them Ezzy flops, which is basically like a no strap loop. And I think that's important because otherwise you can kind of get stuck in the Weimaroo, and doing that kind of whippy rotation without the feet in the straps helps you deal with the fear, and it's completely safe. But I recommend doing that before you get into the Weimaroo so that you don't get stuck in the Weimaroo, which can happen. All right, so Juso, does that help? Does that help? If you're coming out of your straps constantly, you also might want to look at how you're setting up your straps. Setting up your gear is very, very important. We have done a few gear live streams. Maybe we should do another one. It's always important to look at your gear and re-examine it. With your foot straps, you want to make sure that they're not too tight. If they're too tight, you'll come out of them too easily. And basically, the thing with foot straps is I want them tall and tight on the sides. So like loose on the top, tight on the sides. And you can make your straps more narrow, normally depends on the kind of board you have, but a lot of production boards, they've got these washers, plastic washers on the straps, and you can turn those, and they're where the holes are not in the center, so you can turn them to make the straps tighter. So if you need the straps tighter, you can turn the washers, or you can jump a hole. If you jump a hole, obviously that's going to make the straps tighter as well. And you want to make sure that they're loose enough that you can really get a lot of your foot in the board. And so the idea is you want the straps loose so you can get a lot of foot in your board. That gives you control over the board, makes it so your foot doesn't come out as easily. But you also want the straps to be high, so that it's not like you're, well, one, that helps you get your foot in, but also it makes it not that hard to get your foot out as well, because you want your foot in there, you want to have control, you want to be secure, but you also want to be able to take it out. What is dangerous is when the board is, or the foot strap is just on your toes. You don't want that. And in that kind of situation, you are often coming out of the straps. It's kind of dangerous and you don't have much control over the board. So, Juso, I would also look at your straps, and it will feel weird at first, but then it will really change your windsurfing because you suddenly have so much more control over your board. So much more control. I wouldn't be able to sail with just my feet in this, or just my toes in the straps. Tom says, this is more difficult than the forward loop. I think on land with the board and low wind practice, how the sail movement works is the most important thing. Understanding the movements and the steps. I agree with that. Fear plays a big role. And because of fear, then learning the Waimaru can be really, really helpful. So Juso, Max came up with the Ezzy flop. Phil is asking if I'm planning on doing any more online courses. Yes, I am planning to do more. So I have a few mapped out. When I'm going to do them, I don't know, because they are a large time commitment for me, and I have to sort of have that planned out well in advance. And so I've got to see. But what I am doing as well, Phil, I'm not sure if you caught it, is I launched a Patreon, and that's somewhere in the middle of a course. I mean, it's not a course because it's more custom. So whether that's the positive of it is that we can work on anything that you want to work on. So if you're in the accelerator group, we can work on whatever it is that you want to work on, whatever the group wants to work on. But I do plan to do some courses, but there are some other options, more personal options as well in the meantime, like on the Patreon. But I am going to be doing more courses. And so like the plan is to do live courses like I did with the Tacking, and then take out footage of that to also have asynchronous courses, so that there are options for people that want to do it live and we can do it together. And there are also options that are pre-recorded if you don't want to do it together, if you don't want to do it with a group. I really do recommend doing it with a group if you can. I think that's a better way to learn. I think the people in here who have done the courses with the group, it's a really nice experience. There's a lot gained from it, more than just the technical knowledge, right? The technical knowledge is one aspect of the course, but then there's a whole lot of friendship and camaraderie and lessons about windsurfing that you didn't even expect you were going to get because of that group dynamic. Eric, are you okay? I don't know if we should be worried or if I should try to pronounce that. But I don't know. Do we need to call 911? If you need us to call an ambulance, type something again. All right. Moving on. And Juso, check out your foot straps too. I don't know how your foot straps are. Let us know. How are your foot straps? All right. So, John, this is a question from John. Hi, yesterday I went sailing at Brouwersdam Dam in the Netherlands. Forecast for wind and weather looked very good. Wind forecast was 23 knots with gusts to 34. I arrived at noon and the actual wind was already 23 knots with gusts to 29. A few windsurfers were on the water with 5.4 or 4.7 sails. I chose my 4.2 in a medium setting because I'm only 74 kilos and the wind should increase. John goes on to say that the wind did increase and he was totally overpowered. He adjusted the out haul and then the down haul, and then changed to a 3.7, and then sailed until 5. Um, but then he felt like he was only changing the rigging, and he was overpowered a lot of the day. I think, and there's a lot of comments here. This post was pretty popular with 39 comments. I think that re-rigging is not a problem. And if you choose the wrong size or the wind comes up, how do I say this? Because it kind of depends. I mean, there are times where I'll just hold down a sail that's too big because I don't want to change. But there's a lot of times where I realize, okay, the wind's too strong. So I'll come in and I'll adjust the downhaul and the outhaul. And normally I adjust the downhaul and the outhaul together. So I'll like maybe pull it down to max and max. And then if I'm still overpowered, even though it's annoying, I'll just come in and rig. And actually that whole process of de-rigging and rigging, it doesn't take that long, maybe it's 10, 15 minutes. And the amount of energy that you waste when you're fighting a sail that's overpowered, maybe then you're only able to you're able to sail 15 minutes less in that day. So I think like it evens out. So I think re-rigging is something that we should all be comfortable with. And with that in mind, it's easier to rig when you're re-rig when you're overpowered than when you're underpowered. Maybe not mentally, like maybe mentally it's easier. You're like, oh, I'm underpowered. This is annoying. But just physically, it can be harder to get back to the beach. It can be harder to get back. It takes longer. So you do, I think, want to err on the side of being a little bit more powered than less powered. So John, I think you made the right call with the information you had. The only thing I would change is maybe coming into re-rig a little bit sooner. There's some good discussion here about fins and choices, everything else. So Juso, you said that you had the foot straps loose. The other thing I want to check is that they're tight on the sides. So because you do want them kind of high, but you want to make sure that they're tight on the sides. And that helps with the control as well. John, welcome to the stream. All right. So Cedric asked about the German Windsurfing Association, the VWS. They seem to offer some pretty cool insurance options for rental gear and I think borrowing gear as well, which is pretty cool. If 40 euros a year can cover you for renting windsurfing equipment, and I think borrowing it as well, which is pretty cool. So Cedric was wondering if anyone's had to make a claim. Since he posted this, I reached out to a friend of mine who has had to make a claim, and everything seemed to work. So seems like a pretty nice tool for windsurfers in Europe. Soon asks, when riding, I always use an underhand grip on my front hand. So you have the choice, overhand, underhand, as this seems most natural to me. Robbie Nash used to always go underhand. Just before jibing, I changed to an overhand grip to avoid twisting my hand too much. Backhand is always overhand. How do you ride with your front hand, overhand or underhand? Cool. I love questions like this. So it's nice to see the answers from different people. I'm always riding overhand all the time, like Juso here. I guess sometimes I go underhand if I'm just like blasting around, like just trying to go fast. But for wave riding, for doing maneuvers, I'm overhand. I feel like it gives me more control, more fine tuning, and these classic old school photos of Robbie Nash bottom turning underhand are cool, but I think it's not as functional grip position. So I do recommend sailing overhand, very much so. Eric is going to Pozo in September. He says, what tide is the preferred tide to sail on, high or low? Or does that depend on whether one focuses on riding or jumping? So the tides in Pozo matter and they don't matter. If you have good wind and good waves, they don't matter. If you have good wind but no waves, then you don't want to sail on a really low tide because it's just super duper choppy. And my favorite tide in those conditions, when you have wind but no swell, is when it's like mid tide to high tide. And then right around high tide as well can be pretty fun. Sometimes the high tide kills the wind. That's more though on the really extreme tides. But that mid tide to high tide is kind of my favorite. Again, if there is swell, it doesn't really matter. For other spots, though, on Gran Canaria, it does matter more. Vargas is the low tide spot. Too much water, it's breaking on the shore, and you're just dealing with shore break. And Ojos de Garza, which I guess not many people are going to sail. It's one of my favorite spots to sail in Gran Canaria. I think it's very fun. It is also more of a low tide spot. It's not as low tide as Vargas. Like I think you really like Ojos on the mid tide. Like mid tide coming up is really nice. But anyway, to answer your question, Eric, Pozo, it does change with the tides. Like the tides do look pretty dramatic, but it's not really that big of a deal. I think with low tide, you want to be careful not to hit the rocks if you're really sailing on the bunker. But otherwise, it doesn't really make much of a difference. And especially if there is a little bit of swell, makes almost no difference at all. Though on high tide, the shore break can get pretty big, especially if there is swell. And that can be kind of scary, especially if it's kind of gnarly wind. But that doesn't affect the actual riding. That's just getting in and out of the water. And if that's the case for the shore break, I'm trying to think if I have any tips of where to go in. I mean, the main tip with shore break is just to take your time. Just watch it, be patient, watch it, be patient, and go when there's a lull in the waves, and then be quick. You want to be like a lizard. Okay, so like the lizard is like sitting, watching, sitting, watching, and then it sees the fly or whatever it is, and bam, 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 it moves super fast, fast as lightning. And so that's what you want to do with a shore break. You want to do that with a lot of things in windsurfing, actually, where you're like waiting, watching, and then action, like a lizard, the lizard. And it's the same with shore break. So think like a lizard for the shore break. All right, next up, we got Bart. Hello. Onshore bump and jump in the confused chop. Sounds difficult, but I hope you had fun. All right. Bart, this is my devil's tack. Funny how I thought I was lower, more extended on the arms, and more butt to beach than what the camera shows. Perception versus reality. How did you lot break through your mind and get the body lower, more extended, and on the rail with the butt to beach principle? So basically, you really just want to exaggerate all the movements. Like that's one of just the big truths of learning in windsurfing is just exaggeration. So there's really exaggerate. And then also for getting low is doing it before you go. Because it's really hard to think of things in the moment. So you want to get low before you go and get so low it feels like you're sitting down in a chair. Sit down in a chair. Get so low. Exaggerate it. So we've got a question from Dom. Is Vargas less crowded than Pozo? Vargas depends. Vargas, you can get days that are not so crowded, and you can get days that are super duper crowded. So I wouldn't say that Vargas is in general less crowded than Pozo, though maybe it is if you were to look at all the days of the year. But it depends. Vargas can also be crowded. Ojos de Garza, on the other hand, is not normally crowded, but it's a trickier spot. It's not that tricky in general, but you got to drive there, and it's next to an army base, which doesn't really matter unless you're sailing the outside break, which then if you break down, you have a problem, but you wouldn't sail the outside break, you'd sail the beach break. It's lighter wind and the waves can be bigger there, which you might say like, yeah, that sounds great. Lighter wind, bigger waves. Yeah, that's what I want. So like you can have like no waves in Pozo and it can be head high in Ojos. It works also more with north wind. So you get less and less wind as you go up the coast with the normal northeast wind. So Ojos is a north wind spot. So when the wind is a little bit north, and it's kind of fluky, kind of gusty in Pozo, those are the perfect days for Ojos. Ojos de Garza, it's like north of the airport by the military base. Rasmus says that Vargas is more crowded in the siesta when the locals come to sail. So that's like between like 2 to 5. And Max is saying the locals don't like tourists on the weekend at Vargas. That might be true. I don't know. Um, all right. So, Bart, I think that I've kind of answered your question. I don't know. It's so simple. I don't know if that's enough for you, but sometimes the simple answer is the best one. And so it's exaggerate your movement and get low before you go. So really get low before you go. Sit down in a chair before you go into that bottom turn. And that's how you get really, really low. And even then, when you see the video, you're going to think, well, I'm actually not even that low. Um, and so then how do you work on getting the butt to the beach? I'd work on getting low first. And then once you're comfortable with the getting low before you go, then just like turning those hips in, and just thinking about that one thing in the turn and seeing how that feels. Yeah, so I've already answered that. Here, we've got some good comments from other people. Bart, I hope that helps. Thank you, Dom Dom, for updating the coaching directory. You're amazing. I had a gift for you that I think didn't even make it into Europe, so I guess it hasn't come to you. We had some problems with shipping and stuff. So I'm going to look into that, but I'm guessing it hasn't gotten to you. Dom Dom, thank you so much. Everyone, give Dom Dom a round of applause if you see him on the beach somewhere because he updates the coaching directory and it's amazing. Dom Dom's been here since day one. Thank you, Dom Dom, for helping out. All right, here's the turn from Jeff, which we already talked about. Ragnar, hey Ragnar, how's it going? So I saw Niels on the beach the other day. He says he has the same board as you, Jeff. The board is very sensitive. Yeah, some interesting stuff about his experience with the board, how to set it up. Setting up your board is so important. So Tristan is saying to sheet out when the rail is engaged allows to turn better, quicker with no spin because you turn more on the front foot. Yeah, so this is something we talked about on the live stream last week where you really want to get that backhand release, like let the sail release on the backhand and kind of sheet out with the backhand, bring that front hand in as you do it. Yeah, Tristan, that sounds right on. Cedric is looking for adjustable harness lines that don't swing. We don't really have that many. Looks like no one. Or Hans is saying the gun sales one, but otherwise we don't have anyone else. So I'm not sure. If you have a recommendation for Cedric, let him know. I use fixed harness lines, but that is an interesting question. Hey, Tavi. Yeah, I like Ojos. Ojos is pretty fun. All right, we talked about this post from Dennis last week. Here's a post from Hans experimenting with the fins, which is pretty cool. So one of the things that I always say is you want to experiment. You don't want to get stuck keeping your gear the same. Even if it's optimum, it's really good for your windsurfing to play around with non-optimum settings because it teaches you how to adapt, teaches you how the sail works in different ways, how the board works in different ways, and will make you a better and more well-rounded windsurfer. And so Hans put in this really small center fin, which is like a freestyle fin that he cut down. And so what happened? We said, and I love this. This is like experimenting. It teaches you so much about fins, boards, feelings, and it improves your windsurfing all at the same time. And it's something fun to do. If the conditions are not very exciting, you can go put in a freestyle fin in your board and just see what it feels like, and you'll have a fun session because you've got something to try, something new. So it's I love it. It's experimenting with your gear, trying new things is such a good thing to do. Anyway, Hans says that the setup felt great. What a surprise. And really loosened up the board. I was on a 4-2 and powered up. No issues getting on a plane or going upwind despite the current. The board felt more skatey, but it was a big plus on the small waves. Cutting down a damaged fiberglass fin is super easy. I agree. I've done that before. I used to make my own freestyle fins that way and very cheap. I also built my own fins using my CNC machine, but this year I didn't find the time. I hope this little hack inspires people. Nice. Rounded the leading edge, made a lot of progress the last year. Nice. We've seen your progress. All right, so here's Let's watch this clip. I wonder if we can make the quality better. No, we can't. Or can we? No. No. Yeah, so here's a little turn. Yeah, it does look more skatey. I can see this little this last little bit of your bottom turn where you really just like ram it up into the wave to get that high five. That looks pretty skatey. I like to see that. I can see also that you have less drive, right? Like there's not as much drive in your bottom turn here. You're not as accelerating as much in the early part, but then that little like whip at the end is pretty cool. All right, so let's see how this goes. Yeah, cool. You're gonna get the, oh, this is the same clip. This is the same clip, just from the GoPro perspective. Cool. So you're a little bit late on the section. I'd like to see you a little bit earlier. But doing turns on the whitewater is great exercise. So good job anyway. Um, cool. Cool, cool, cool. Yep. So good exercises, Hans. Like to see it. Some good discussion here. Nice. All right, we talked about this before. Juso commented on it again. All right, we were talking about time block learning, different ways to learn. Malcolm talks about how good coaching is and how much it helps you accelerate in your windsurfing. We already talked about these topics. We talked about Portugal. I think we talked about this last time. So Dave wants to spend the winter in Portugal. Any pointers? Viana, Sagres, Peniche. I'm not an expert on the winter, so I don't know what the wind is like in the winter. I love Portugal. I love windsurfing in Portugal. It's more of a summer spot though, as far as I know it, but I think it can work in the winter as well. I'm not really sure. Ben Profit is in Sagres. I can ask him how the wind is in the winter. Let me make a note of that. And then Viana, I don't know. Let me see. I'll take a note. Make note of it. All right. We already talked about this goals for the summer. I think it's important to set goals. Yeah, Dom drive also means accelerating. It's one of those words that we use in describing boards and windsurfing that isn't very clear. But yeah, drive means accelerating. It means sort of like pushing through the turn, accelerating through the turn, having power through the turn, keeping speed rather than losing speed. So it doesn't necessarily mean accelerating, but it also means not losing speed. So it means like it's stable pushing through the turn. All right. Here's a post from Caro. So Caro has been working on her forward loops and her using the Waimaru process and also working on 360s. So this is great. She's getting some air going through the forward. So Caro's been working on this process. She knows what to do. And it's really cool to see her progress here. Carl, the only thing that I'd like to see you do is really look more with that head and then pull the sail in more here. And you'll get a little bit more whip at the end of that rotation, just really looking with that head where you want to go over that shoulder. Just really looking with that head will just really help you just take this Waimaru home. But otherwise, I really like your technique. It looks really solid. And you've got your own method of doing this, kind of slow and steady, but you're really getting there. And so I want to just give you some encouragement because I can really see the progress as you're going. You're getting higher, you're doing them faster. I like to see it. And so this is your no fear approach to learning the forwards, and I think it's working. So keep at it. I really want to see you keep at it, and I want to see you look over that shoulder. It's looking over your shoulder where you're going to go. So it's over your rear shoulder, but that's the direction you're going because the forward loop is a spin that's traveling downwind. So really getting that head over the shoulder, like here, you're still looking between your hands. That's going to make a huge difference. It's going to make a world of difference for this rotation. And it will give you more comfort and make it less scary, because if you're looking where you're going to go, things are less scary. It's scary when you're doing a rotation and you're not looking where you want to go and you feel blind, you feel like you're traveling into this darkness and you don't know what's happening. That's the scariest. So if you look where you're going to go, it's not scary. And so looking over that rear shoulder in the forward loop or this Waimaru helps reduce the fear, because you can see where you're going and your mind knows what's happening. It makes such a difference mentally when you're looking where you're going to go. And the forward loop is no exception there. It's like even more than normal. And then here's the 360 on the wave, which is the same kind of rotation. We don't have the full sequence here, but it looks really solid. I mean, if I had to guess, I would say that you would land this one, or maybe you're landing it a little kind of with the board upwind of you, but you're getting good air. Caro, the only thing I would say is to try this on sections that are where you're going with the section. So like instead of trying it here, that can be harder to keep the speed. But then you're not going to end up with the mast hitting the wave, and you have a bit more space. So it makes the move a little bit easier. So like if you hit, for example, this section that we see on the other side of the whitewater rather than into the whitewater, will also be a little bit easier. But good work. I want to see some of your progress. You're in El Medano for a few weeks before you join us on the Windsurfing Masterclass in Denmark, which, by the way, there still is a spot on the second week of the Windsurfing Masterclass in Denmark. So if you are interested, reach out to me. There is a link somewhere up the top of the group here. It's this pinned post applying for the Denmark Masterclass. It's the second week. It has a space. So if you are interested, you can sign up there. Let me know if you do. I think, are we all caught up? So I know that post from Caro was from last week that we wanted to get to. I think we didn't talk about this one from Axel. So let's read it. So, hi group, a couple of weeks ago, I asked about how to cope with too much wind during a wave ride. Here's a clip where I'm fully stacked on a 5.3, especially during the setup turns. A wider grip, as suggested by Graham Ezzy, did help a lot. Any more ideas how to cope with overpowered wave rides? Changing sails was not an option, as it was already late in the day, high tide was near, and I was exhausted and in the just one more wave mode. So one thing I would say, just before we even look at any of this, is make sure that your sail is rigged for the conditions. So, okay, maybe you're on a 5.3 and it's 4.7 conditions. Get that sucker downhauled all the way. Get the outhaul pulled all the way. Get it flat. And that takes a lot less time than changing the sail, but it can also make a big difference for how the sail feels for your session. I don't recommend this for everyone because everyone has different comfort levels. I do those changes in the water. I can change the downhole in the water. I can change the outhaul in the water. Now, I really recognize that not everyone has that comfort level. So just going to the beach, pop your boom out one, pull it another 2 centimeters, throw on some more downhaul, and that might really make the sail more manageable. All right, let's watch the video. We got one question in the chat from Caro. She says she'll keep us updated. She had some good attempts today and yesterday, and she's looking forward to landing one. So work on the head, get the head. You could grab a little bit wider too. I don't want to give you too many things because you're on that path, and I can really see the progress, and you don't want too much in your head. You're doing a great job. So focus just on that head thing, just the head. That will make a big difference. Rasmus is saying the only taboo rider using a short tail board was in Posa was Sugi. In this conditions, it looked really good. What's your take on it? Does look good, and I wanted actually to get one of those DeBomb boards for myself for Pozo, but they were out of stock in Europe, and the one for Sugi was a custom that I carried there for him. And yeah, but they do look good. I want to get one of those DeBombs as well. All right, let's watch this video of Axel. So wide grip, kind of gripping by the clips. I like it. Also, when you're overpowered like this, really getting low helps. Oh, I love that turn. Love the timing here, Axel. Look at that. Look at that. Right in the lip. Yeah, overpowered, but good timing. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Nice timing, Axel. Right in the pocket. Nice. Um, I really like that turn. Looks like you I mean, you say you're overpowered and having a difficult job, but it looks like you're handling it pretty well. My main things, and there's some other comments here, hopefully are um, helpful, is make sure that if you're not going to change sails, make sure that it's rigged flat. You got a lot of downhaul. You can go like super loose leech and get that out haul tight. That can really help make the sail feel more manageable. Then the wide grip, like you're doing, and that's helpful. And then really getting low as well. And then it can be difficult, right? Like it's never going to be perfect. If you're on too big a sail, you're on too big a sail, and then you're kind of just muscling it and trying to make it work. Really exaggerating those movements. Exaggerating is always good, but especially when you're overpowered like that. And you want to make sure, like in your bottom turns, that you're really getting forward, because when you have so much power, you're often pulling back against the sail and really leaning back against that sail. And you gotta fight that instinct in order to then lean forward and get your bottom turn how you want it to be. Um, so this is the footage from Dennis. You're ripping, Dennis. We watched that last week. Um, so what I want to end with is just letting you know about the Patreon. So it's patreon.com/Graham Ezzy. And so you can sign up for the newsletter, and I'm excited to start doing this. It's going to be monthly. If you want to just support the Facebook community and the live stream, we've got the basic support option. And then on the other end, there's an accelerator club, which includes the WhatsApp group and the Zoom call once a month, where we can work on whatever you want to work on with the rest of the group. The newsletter, though, is something I'm really excited to do. It's going to be, a recap from what's been going on in the coaching group, as well as other thoughts that I have that are inspired by that, as well as other things like technique, advice. You get some early access to some coaching videos. So if you're interested in the newsletter, sign up here. If you just want to support the stream, that's fine too. And, if you can't afford any of these options, that's also fine. I appreciate you. It's great just to have you contributing, being involved in the community. This community is so great. I really love seeing the dynamics. I love these posts and reading the comments. And I read every post. I try to read every comment. It's so cool to see the different insights from different people. Like a little discussion between Hans and Greg, or whoever it is. It's so cool. I love these conversations. So just being a member of the community, contributing member, is great. If you're just reading, that's also great. If you want to do something active to help, but you can't afford $10 a month, tell your friends. Let's increase the numbers, get more people watching the stream, get more people in the Facebook group. Those are some ways that you can help out. And if you're interested in the newsletter, it's patreon.com/Graham Ezzy. There's a link in this description somewhere, and then I'll throw a link as well in the Facebook group. Anyway, guys, I think that's it. We've caught up on everything. I'll see you next Sunday. Thank you for joining. Tomas, I will get some of the footage from Denmark edited and posted in the group. All right, I'm going to sign off. Good night, good day. I hope you have a windy week. Bye-bye.